Good evening, everyone. Is the sound? Good evening. No sound. Good evening, everyone. Is the sound okay? No? Could we get a louder sound, please? It's okay. Okay. Good evening and welcome to the first lecture of this fall arranged by Oslo Architect Association. We are very glad and grateful to Oslo School of Architecture for letting us have the lecture here at AHO. My name is Lena Margrethe Berge. I work as the coordinator in the association and will quickly, in Norwegian, present our upcoming events until next lecture, before Jonas Løland from our program committee will introduce today's lecture with Miroslav Šik. Vi har et rikt program i høst på OAF som åpent for alle, så jeg anbefaler dere å sjekke det ut på våre nettsider, på Facebook og på Instagram. Dette gjelder både forelesninger, panelsamtaler og debatter. Og nå som vi på AHO, så passer det å si at vi selvfølgelig alltid interessert i nye studentmedlemskap. Og jeg vil minne om at studentmedlemskapet også rabattert. Men jeg vil gå gjennom veldig raskt de eventene som kommer opp i nær fremtid. Et arrangement en presentasjon og et verksted med plan- og bygningsetaten, der vi har kommuneplanens arealdel på høring, og vi vil diskutere om den bidrar til økt kvalitet. Det vil også være et arrangement i hagestuen på Arkitektenes hus, oljearkitektur eller uidentifisert flytende objekt, der vi snakker om Njål Eides stålpaviljong, og har en samtale om vern av nyere arkitektur i dagens klima. Og så vil det være en lanseringsfest av ressurskartet, og det vil holdes en debatt om hvordan veien går videre. Det i regi av AKA Norge i samarbeid med OAF, som inviterer til denne samtalen på Rom for kunst og arkitektur. Og så den neste forelesningen, Helle arkitektur, den holdes på Arkitektenes hus 12. oktober. Og da vil vi komme tilbake til videre program senere. Men da ønsker jeg Jonas Løland fra OAF sin programkomité velkommen opp for å introdusere dagens forelesning.
Ja, så må vi begynne fra start. Okay. Mitt navn Jonas Løland, jeg leder programkomiteen. So, good evening everyone. I'm happy to see so many people. Welcome to the first of 4 lectures this fall with the Oslo Association of Architects. We are very happy and off to a good start, I think, to have Miroslav Šik here with us tonight. The lecture series this fall is loosely based around the topic of first love, dealing with the often personal, if not private, initial vectors from which architects first engage the profession. Or broader, just inspiration and the values that keep us going and dealing with all this stuff. These formative pursuits and motivators might last forever or may be abandoned quickly in shame, with some only to reappear later on in life. We are curious about what actually motivates architects who make beautiful buildings, how it got started, and how it's going, and how the personal might inform a profession in interesting ways, knowing that the personal alone is never enough. So we are individuals, but we're also professionals, and how to find a nice balance between this and to be inspired, so it's not just a job, or how to really make human projects. Is an inspired heart the key to good architecture? So this was informing us in finding lecturers. No? And when I first contacted Šik, he told me that the last time he visited Oslo was in 1989 with the exhibition on analog architecture. And that it would be nice to do a posteriori tour, looking back on how things might have developed since this formative exhibition. And I also see in his practice a very nice balance of being a person, but also a part of a tradition, let's say, or a profession. Continuing these ideas of the analog architecture, he has employed architectural analogies in his teaching and practice as a way to, let's say, instrumentalize both the environment and the tradition and the personal in order to create new projects that are able to be rich and meaningful. Central to this is the notion of the old new, altneu, an influential idea that strikes at the heart of creative production. This inspired an architectural approach to history, life, and the personal as a designer is highly relevant to us now, considering the current local discussion on humanizing the built environment through a renewed focus on tradition and identity, a discourse which too often seemed to border on regression, in my personal view. So this is one inspiring part. Another one is, I think, personal also his focus on the image or the architectural image, the image as a way to represent an architectural idea and to reduce that to maybe one or a few important images. This discipline also has inspired me. And the way that he has embraced the digital tools in his work also is, I think, has been important in the recent years. This being the opening lecture of the semester, it is a great pleasure to welcome Miroslav Šik to the Oslo School of Architecture on behalf of the Oslo Association of Architects. Miroslav Šik was born in the Czech Republic and studied architecture at the ETH Zurich under Aldo Rossi, among others. He has researched and taught extensively in Zurich, Lausanne, and Prague. From 1983 to 1990, he was the head assistant at the legendary chair of Fabian Reinhardt, and Šik himself has been full professor at ETH with his influential studio since 1999. Continuing the earlier work and adding to it the notion of the altneu and taking the step into the digital. In addition to his academic work, he has been running his own architectural practice since 1987. The office has realized a number of significant buildings of various programs, including cooperative housing, apartments, schools, and religious buildings. I would characterize the architecture as moody, but in a good way, and with a special and beautiful quality of the everyday that gives a strong connection to their surroundings, history, and life. He is currently teaching in Prague. So please join me in giving a warm welcome to our guest tonight, Miroslav Šik.
Hello. The last time it was November 1989. I was here. I was invited by the same architect, Verein, to show an exhibition we did in Europe. I was an architect who didn't build until then. I was just an assistant, and I did very nice drawings, but it was cold winter, and in those days, Norway was not so rich. So once you were in Oslo, they sold you, as I said it, to Bergen and Trondheim, and the last station for me was Bodø, and somewhere there, I don't know if it's Bodø or Trondheim, in the night, 17 November. The architect woman I was staying with, she had a house with grass on the roof. She woke me and said, "Oh, something is happening in Prague." It was a silver night. I was a heavy smoker, so I smoked some kind of Gauloise Bleu. And she gave me an old radio, and I was listening to Radio Luxembourg. You don't know it. It's radio. Do you know radio? It's something you can hear. And I heard that there are students' riots near to the theater. And suddenly, after 20 years, I knew that my Swiss way is going to change. That's only a story. I won't continue, but you are because of your country it happens. I won't repeat all the names and theories I used to do it, because now I look back at 40 years of work. I think it's good to explain, even for the youngest, what I really do. And I think I do three things. I'm producing architecture by three ways. The first one, by the French word la recherche, would be to discover always new things. You can't just finish by diploma or by your master and then build houses. It's not enough. You still go back and you still have to read, visit, analyze. You have to write. That's my teacher, Aldo Rossi, did it. It's a triade, a model of three, which he did his whole life. You always have to be a researcher. They don't pay it for you, for it, but you do it by yourself. And because the discussion with the colleagues is a boring stuff. If it's a competition jury, the one is speaking about his success, and he's saying, yes, your project is good too. It's no discussion. So the real discussion can be only with built architecture. You don't even have to talk to the people. You have to talk to the architecture, and these are your partners for discussion. So that's why the whole life. The last thing I will show it is a study of Heinrich Teseno I did now for the nice book by Martin Bösch about Castle Gymnasium. So, and the second way of making architecture is, again, it's something I was building always my own family. Tradere means not to be alone. I was looking at the always last, let me say, modernity. Since beginning of the modern times, I was looking for people who were searching the similar aims, and I compare what I'm doing. Tradere means you are one part of a big movement. That's what I think. I call it reform architecture. That when I was at school, the architecture history was done by Le Corbusier, Mies van der Rohe, Gropius, glorious Bauhaus, De Stijl, Russian constructivism. When I started, it was Zaha Hadid discovering Russian formalism and constructivism. So they came back with Catherine Cook, and when we met in Zurich, I was quarreling why discovering all these things, and she did the same thing as I did. She just looked for references, somebody she could talk to. She wanted to fall in love, and that's Tradere means you fell in love your whole life, and then you are not alone. I will show you some names, so probably you will know them. And the third thing I am building, again, it's Aldo Rossi. Yes, I did prisons too. I did factories too. But this is not. I think that the only thing I have done is domus. I understand everything I did. La casa, a house. as the first unity of the city. In the meaning of domus, which is the Roman one, this is the Roman unity, which is here, everything is happening. There are two, as again Rossi said, there are two architecture, iconic one and the domus one, the districts, where the people are living. And I think that I am doing everything what I'm doing. I make a small house from it, even if it's a house for God. If I make a church, it doesn't. A house is a house. A house is not a rocket to the Mars. A house is a house. We build houses. Engineer can do whatever they do, but we do houses for people who are here with 2 feet on the earth. And we won't fly to Mars and to forget it. Forget Musk, all the shit. No, we are here. Because there's a lot of problems which must be solved here. All the money you put to Mars, we need for houses and for country and landscapes and water and whatever. We are asked here, so domus, small house. And the small is the word which I would like you to understand. Can I just move it like, yes. Just if you would find something. I'm still teaching. There's only one country in Europe they allow me to teach. I'm an old white man, privileged old white man. That's something which is dying out, so very soon I will disappear. But still in Prague I can teach. So after Zurich, otherwise I would have to go to the United States, or they ask me for China, South Korea, or United Arabic. I couldn't imagine how I can explain La Casa to people living in tents or living in desert. So I just refused, and I'm teaching in Prague. So Atelier Šik. It's, if you like to see something. Then I was teacher in Zurich. It's the last one, and the first one is my own office. That's the last research I did. Again, I said it already. Martin Bösch, he just presented 3 months ago a fantastic book about Heinrich Tessenow, and he gave me some, the small sketch by Heinrich Tessenow and nothing more, and it was up to me to rebuild what was the meaning. And at the end of this research, nowadays the house is just the white one, the white in the background. All the other things were not built. And my thesis was that the meaning of the house was totally different if all these parts were built. That's what I did. And it was during the COVID, 2020, I did for 5 months in the countryside, so it was quite interesting. Discussing about architecture is discussing with human being too, because Heinrich Tessenow had feeling when he did a court, when he did small houses at the corner. It had a meaning, it had a sense. It was not just like that. He was one of these architects who built not very much, but I think that to go back, it's an old story. It's 1920, 1937, 1945. It will never repeat, and we will never build like that. But we can learn by some principles, by a research. That's what I'm saying. The second thing, which I really can prove I did, was I developed this method of working by references or analogies. The word comes from Aldo Rossi, città analoga, so I use it too. Analogy means I start teaching and asking, for example, the young students, or I do it by myself, put what you think not by brain, no concept, but by heart and by stomach. You choose a reference, which At the beginning, it's just a reference, prima lettura, that's what Rossi said. It comes and you don't even know where. It's not the Protestant way of making a concept by just feeling. So that's probably the biggest difference to all these methods in Bauhaus, or it's not a rational method. Working by references, from the first moment, you must have the image. It means a whole. You don't have plan, you don't have not yet sections, you don't have, it probably even doesn't fit to the side, doesn't matter. You start by the references and you make, the second step is the collage. Collage is collage, it's exactly what the word is meaning and how it was developed in the avant-garde days of the 20s. Collage means, we did it even before Photoshop, we did it we scissors and we cut it out and we glue it together and we put it in a Xerox machine. Xerox machine, you still know? Okay? And if you open it a little bit more, it became dark, so, and nowadays you can't do it, but it was a fantastic, it was like a patina on the drawings. Collage is, if you do it rationally, you will say, is the house 12 meters? Is it 8 meters high? Are there 4 aisles of windows? If you do it by collage, it will fit. It looks like it's done. It's done. No, of course it's not done. Afterward, you will make a project out of it. But the collage gives you. You have the reference, so you make a copy of something, but even in the collage you have this estrangement that you use it on the left side, or you change the material. So the collage is already the design. And afterwards starts all other steps. All architects do it. You are designing it in all these elements. But again, we do it from the very beginning, from 1978, we do it in 3 dimensions, even if it was not yet the time of Archicad. We did it in 3 dimensions, and because I think images, in an image you have, as I said, the whole of architecture. You know, and I think that until then, when I was starting architecture, we did the black and white design, so black lines, a tree, a woman in foreground, a child or dog in foreground, so and they were, so you didn't see color. You couldn't touch the haptic of material. But in an image, you know, you can't mask yourself. Number 3, if it's red, it's red. And if you don't want it to be red, you do it blue. But you have to say what you want. Don't talk too much. Don't use intellectual discussion, the whole correct discussions. Yeah, this is all important too, of course, in the outside of architecture. But in architecture, we talk about windows, roofs, walls, floors, and not flying saucers. Again, we don't fly to Mars. And the third one, that's the final drawing. This is the end. It's now we have, every day we are receiving a rendering proposals from Vietnam, from Ukraine for 50 euro. They will do drawings for you. You can do it by yourself, because the real darkness of your color, only you can. You are the only producer who knows how to do it. Don't sell it to all these poor countries, because they need the work, but do it yourself. Learn it, and the 3 dimension, and then you go back and make it 2 dimension, technical plans, drawings, calculation, whatever. So I think this is a method which, designing by references, is probably in Swiss architecture, in the German part, probably became a general method of designing architecture at schools, in offices. The third element of research, of course, is teaching. I'm at the end, so I can say, I am paid for teach young architects to become good one. But I do it just for other reasons. First, they are always crazy. They start by every year. They make the same mistakes every year. Okay, I accept. But they are crazy. They always produce new combination of ideas, and it keeps me young. That's the only reason I am teaching still. You are not paid for it. It's a craftsmanship you should teach. But I am there because in an office it's boring. Because it's little bit, it's boring. So these are my students. Of course, I know it wouldn't hold the corner. Don't say me such things. Yes, it wouldn't hold. But, for example, these young architects, she brought me back for a long, long dream I'm now realizing at Prague at the academy, to go back arts and architecture. So I start to cooperate with artists, sculpture and painters. So that will produce probably in 2, 3, 4 years something which is of any value. We go back where architecture was once. Architecture is a powerful media. It can express 100 million of things, but there are limits. We can't express love, hateness, all the other elements which only arts can express. And if you want to have it in your architecture, you have to cooperate with other peoples. As we have once lost countryside to Landschaftsarchitekten, we lost it. Because until then, how was the landscape? Let us remember the famous Le Corbusier landscape was something blue or green in between the plans of Le Corbusier. It was always the in-between. It was the like Nouvelle Cuisine, all these shits on the table, just a little bit paprika, a little bit tomato. Exactly, that's lunch. And they took it away from us. About 7% of our honorary is gone, and it's okay, because they do it better. Landscaping is, since 25 years, became a new profession, very important one, and I think that the same thing should happen with art. We should give up some elements. We should stop making architecture art. We should understand architecture as a angewandte, applied profession, and the artistic elements should be done by artists. That's why I always worked with artists in my, These are just examples of the last work for the students, reconstruction, which is very important, or even new buildings. Tradere. Now, when I should name all the elements in my architecture, I can speak now often after 40 years. Yes, I have stolen. I have stolen a lot of things. Windows, Auguste Perret windows, or Ridolfi, or the Italian in the 50s, Gardella, Neoliberty. Yes, I know where my architecture comes. I'm always speaking about context, but my houses are special because I've stolen it from Italian architecture. They know it too, the Swiss. They know quite well where I was stealing all these things, but officially I speak about context. And you have to buy books. You find it not, they are not in internet. No, they are not. Google didn't download all the books I have in my library, or you have in this wonderful library you have here. So do use it. They don't have it. They don't have all the hundreds of sketches of the architects, so all the Mendelssohn books I have seen. So how we develop it, that's our way. We are architects. We are different to all the others. We are generalists, and we must be proud of it. But it's a very special profession. And once you will leave the school, and there are all the colleagues here, Then it will change probably. You will have to calculate. The money must be okay. You will fight for what we have still in Switzerland, that your profession is 100% of the whole work. You will not give up just for sketches, for competition, and then some developer will take it away from you. No, in Switzerland we still have 59 or 60%, so it's okay. And for the construction site, I have somebody I'm working since years together. He's better in it. But 60% and 59% of all the money, it's okay. Because I have to speak to the firm, to all the people, because they show you some other solution. And it's good. You can still change a little bit the image. So tradere means my family. It's a kind of, yeah, it's my family. Just remember them. Just remember Hans Dölgast. The Second World War is at the end. Nazi lost. And there is a question, what do you do with all the ruins? Do you rebuild? Or do you show the scars? Do you show how it's cut, the landscape? And Hans Dölgast thought he will put just a very thin roof, very thin, and he will use even the bricks from destroyed buildings, and by this he will build the walls, because people should not remember. Yes, he wanted memento mori. And it took 30 years, it was okay, and now they don't want it any longer. They don't want to have the memento mori. They don't want to be memorized how it was once. So in Dresden, the church, they rebuilt it in the old way, reconstruction. They put all the gold on it, all the wonderful, beautiful thing, but Hans Dölgast's steps is disappearing. Or Galfetti on the right, Castello, Bellinzona, how he could put the old stones, the new concrete elements, the sailing he had in his mind, so together with when you come into the interior thing, he did everything. So the mixture, what for me it's a different way to Dölgast, another way of the edges are. Hans Dölgast did always a clean cut between old and new. And Galfetti, he put it more together, so it's a little bit zusammengenäht. It's like just, so once it will be probably a new skin together. Or, he is more problematic, Pouillon, Fernand Pouillon, probably it's no longer a correct picture. You may excuse me, sometimes I'm nostalgic too. It's in Algeria, a huge court as a memory of the Arabic royal courts as a social living. So probably one day I will visit. I didn't visit it. I was afraid with my, well, now it's grey, but once it was blonde, with the blonde hair, to go to Algeria. Tradere. Yes. We started in 1980. In this time was when the industry left our continent. We have lost proletarian bicycle club. We have lost crazy Italians who, with red flags, march on 1st May singing fascisti, capitalisti, assassini. We have lost pizza eating with all the proletarian. Suddenly, in 7-8 years, the industry was gone. I don't know where all these people were gone, but they are gone. Now we have all the banks back in Zurich, but once it was an industrial city. For us, it was probably, we were in those days probably the references we had, we were the seismographs of a lost. But we were not the only one. You remember, probably Wim Wenders. Alice in den Städten, when he's driving with a small girl through a Ruhrgebiet where all the coal and steel and so was producing, and it was all closed. Or you remember Jim Jarmusch films, the black and white. So when I was 89, some of you, or some of the Scandinavian humanists said me, "Oh, you are fascist." I said, "Why?" "Because it's so dark." I think it's just melancholic. It is just melancholic. It's an old barrack. It's an old wooden barracks. Crazy. It was not even allowed in those days because of fire protection, whatever. Or the small building, it's here, it's in Berlin. When you were in Berlin, 85, 87, it was all grown with wilderness. And it was a quiet city. And these were the aspects we were reproducing in our we were the seismograph of architecture, which was to disappear. Oh, here, I won, or I had the second prize, I don't know. So, a competition in, I don't know. For America, just to see how crazy we were in those days. Imagine they would give me this contract for it. These are oaks. Each state would become one American oak. American oak needs approximately 150 years until it's in this way. And these 150 years, you have to do it exactly as they did it in Baroque period. You have to put all these trunks together and you cut it so it will build this. This is one of the oldest images we have, the dome, God's dome. I thought it would be quite a good monument for 200 years of American independence. But I would live 70 years, I will never see it. How can you produce all these elements in Bohemia, in Czech Republic? They built it for whom? For them? No. They built it for their children? No. It will take 150 years. So a lot of the architecture you like in Gone with the Wind, that was my image, I think, Gone with the Wind, when she's standing and he's riding with the horse again the house, such a nonsense, of course, but it was a wonderful film. The love was strong. And all the trees you see it, but you see the section. You need to make about 4 or 5 meters of humus because it's like a ship. When it's raining into it, it will move. I don't think I was realistic, but at least that's where the image is from the first steps, how we work with these references. Sometimes it was over-exaggerated. At least it was this kind of strong images. Or Paris. That's on the place where you have the La Bibliothèque Nationale by Dominique Perrault. It was on a place, on a railway station with full of barracks and small houses, these typical small French houses at the periphery, not the big palazzo, the cour d'entrée, but the small one with the chimney on the top. And but the French, they looked at me like, why do you keep all these old references? Because we want to be free, we want to be friendly, we want to be open, we want to be clean, they like so much this transparency of Dominique Perrault. Why do you close it all so we didn't win something in this competition? Because it can't be a library. La Casa. I think that if a house doesn't have walls, it's for me not a house. I'm sorry. Dash tile is not a house. Mies van der Rohe pavilion in, where is it, Barcelona, is not a house. The house in Farnworth, Chicago, by Mies van der Rohe in the 50s, I think, it's not a house. It was built, I have a story to prove it. It's not just a meaning of Šik. It was built for a Jewish psychiatrist. She loved it. She was for everything, as I'm a Jew, so I can say, we are open to anything. Modern music, modern philosophy. We are open for everything, so she was open for everything. And she was expecting a beautiful house in a prairie. She bought a wonderful parcel in a prairie, and he built a wonderful house full of glass, and the toilet was in the middle, and round there were only glass. She was so happy to have it because he thought she will show, it will be the transparency of her soul to the nature. Exactly, it was written in the magazine. It was built, she went in, and what happened? Do you know what happened to a glass house in a prairie when it's evening? All horrible insects are on the glass of the walls. It's full of it. And if there are no insects, because it's raining, it's dark. The glass front is dark. It's only working if there's one candle in the outside, then the transparency will work. But she was alone, she was afraid of the animals, so she said, I had to change, so what did she say? She put curtains on it. And when Mies van der Rohe arrived, he became furious, and so she kicked him out, and he was no longer allowed to go. After 8 years, Madame Psychiatrist sold the house. Until then, she put on any modernistic surface her photography of animals, of plants, she put ornaments on the modern surfaces. She was fighting with the modern architect. That's what I'm too. So that's why I built walls and roof. A house without roof is not a house. If you open too much as the style, if you put and the in between and you call it la fenêtre, or window, I would say no, it's not. It's just a gap. It's a gap. It's not a window, it's gap. Or la fenêtre en longueur, like that, from wall to wall. It's great. You put walls like that, and you have glass. No. Auguste Perret told already to Le Corbusier what I'm repeating it like an idiot. I'm repeating the same. Monsieur, la fenêtre en longueur, c'est pas une fenêtre, c'est rien. La seule chose, c'est la fenêtre à la française. C'est le double porte. The double doors you can open and you can come out, you can smoke, or you are in a bed and you open it and you can look to the street. But these shooting windows of Bauhaus. So I think these wall, window, door, ceiling, material, this is what makes the domus to be domus. But now I have to prove it. But before, these are the houses I am fascinating until now. Hans Dölgas, his own house. I think that Asplund's integration of a chapel into the forest, it's a marvelous one. It's just a marvelous, even if now it's to be destroyed, as I have seen last year. Or Gardella's house, Bouillon. I think that it's quite simple to understand what it means to understand architecture as la casa, as a domus. It's quite simple. For all the historian critics who will write about it, it's not so easy because it's so simple that you can't say there's no invention exact, but there is always, as in Asplund's work, an incredible empathy when he saw the Italian landscape. He understand all the colors he brought to Sweden. The library, the red color, which is, well, it's not red, it's Asplund's red. And your house is here, the gray and the white, which comes probably from Palladio, 17th century. So all these fine colors are it's, well. But I started, of course, I won. I became architect by winning a competition. It was for Catholic church, and I won it by analogue architecture, by an image. I won it, and everybody, they didn't notice, and I didn't notice too, that it doesn't work. But it's a good image. You have 5 of them. Wonderful. 6 doesn't work, 4 doesn't work, 5 is good. Rafael Moneo, he will take it from me and he will use it from 5 years later. And he did it better, of course. But here, because the interior will work only with this place. How does it work for toilets? But I won it. That was my first contract. And I had to change it because it didn't work. And I became, the biggest change between industrial nostalgia of the 1980s was we started to build not before 92 or 93. And the world changed. Socialism or communism disappeared. Everybody was happy. The market will solve everything. We will be rich. And the brothers of Chicago will give us. So there was no place for nostalgia. And we don't need a state. We don't need regulation. So in those times, I was even influenced. I thought, this is a whiskey brewery in Scotland. Very often they are very. So this was my reference. So, but I thought it doesn't work. So and then whiskey brewery is not a good reference from Catholic Church. That was in my head. So I thought, what about an arche noire? An arche noire, it's like a boat. And that was what I built. This is the first building. Second one, a house for musicians, which, yes, this is the Italian aspect. In Italy, you have hundreds of such buildings, but in Zurich, it was an exception. It was a house of double face. It was the gray Italian house to the ceramic, which fits to, as you see, probably to all the houses. And in the courts it's a footprint E. And in the court, I changed the color. And around the court, all the living spaces are. Doesn't work. No, it doesn't work here. But at least this is the living area and kitchen and the sleeping on the other side. You have 4 walls for yourself. And what's funny, the musicians are playing at Christmas together. So you have this Teatro Mundi, all the people in the windows. So I think it worked quite well. And then you win, by a coincidence, you win a competition and you a son of a communist father is building Catholic and Protestant churches, which this Jewish guy is building. It's quite funny, because when I was invited, this was a Catholic center too. They asked me for restoration of a church. I had to go to a library, take a book, and to understand all the ceremony of the Catholic. Okay, the blood of Jesus. So I read it for a couple of times. As I learned the Swissness, I learned the Catholicness. It works. If you have empathy, it takes months until you understand it, but if you like, as I could, we had always for thousands of years to learn the other cultures, so we are the seismographs of learning the otherness, the strangeness of the other. So I learned even the Catholic liturgy. Hotel, seminary, whatever. The interesting thing was I was the only one in the competition who said, I let the buildings as they are there, I will just put a new facade. So I will take the whole by the face, and by the face I took, it was colonial action. So these were the first steps, and now what I really built. How, if you have to build something in the middle of Haldenstein, you can make it like Peter Zumthor, because you are Peter Zumthor. You don't have to look for the scale. You don't have to look for the materials. You are Peter Zumthor. You can do whatever you like. Once it's wonderful, in Haldenstein it's not wonderful, but I'm not Peter Zumthor. I was in the middle, and I saw just from the mountain, I have seen all the roofs and all the disorder, the chaos of the roofs were the first idea. I knew I will cut the program in some units which will be put together. That the scale will be kept. And then, once I had the image, the reference, I have the height, of course, because this was the houses surrounding, it was clear. I was asking what would be the special about it, because just to repeat something, it's not the stuff. How to change in which way? Color would be the first. And then material, because the normal house in Haldenstein would be red roof, red tiles, burned tiles, and probably blasted surfaces and wooden windows. So I knew I will start by this. So if the shape is just a repetition, by material, by color, by windows, I can estrange it a little bit. As estrangement is probably the expression I took from Bertolt Brecht, Verfremdung. Regular or not regular? That's a question, because the village is really built by coincidence. There is no rule in it. So it's shifted a little bit. And I said, no, I will do the opposite. I will make an exact order, and the exact form will produce with the surroundings irregular courts. So we have 2 courts on each side, entry courts. And of course, this is what was allowed to go very narrow, 60 centimeters. Well, that's an exception. That's not my invention. That's how I won. I knew I'm not. There were 2 modernists in the jury. Now I'm speaking about strategy, how to be successful. If you have Christian Keretz in a jury, don't make windows like Šik, because he will kick you out. If Šik is in the jury, don't make Christian Keretz. That's a side of our profession too. We make tendency, we are obliged to be objective, to be correct, yes, but again, at the end, if there are 2 or 3 projects and they have everything is perfect, and you have to decide and you have to convince the people in the village, and they expect from you, in Switzerland, they expect from you and you have to say, yes, I like this. It's funny, they expect it. When I was young, they didn't ask me. Now they really ask me, Professore, do you think it's nice? And then you have to stand there and say, yes, it's nice. And to say it in an urn. Unfortunately, the older you get, the less you are sure that this window is better than the other one. The older you get, the more houses you have seen which were different from my taste, but are still beautiful. And I know that even house of Christian Keretz are beautiful too sometimes. Yeah. That's a weakness of an old man. But you see one idea. Above Haldenstein, there are already the mountains, and you see the stone. They are, I think it's granite. It's dark, gray. So I translate it in a concrete, in a not prefabricated, but Ortsbeton. From that moment, I knew I have to learn something about concrete. I have to know all these beton. How it works, how much of this you can use in one place, 2 meters, and then you will have a line, and 2 meters, and again. So this is what I have to learn. But after I started to learn the concrete culture. Here, the second estrangement would be, if you have the shape, you have to cut it in a different typology, and I decided for Casa Abalatoio, house with Laubengang, or I don't know how to say it in German, in English, a Laubengang house. And that was probably not so typical for Haldenstein. We are on 900 meters above the sea, so there is a lot of snow going from the west-north part, and they were quarreling with me that it won't work, but I convinced them that if there are houses on the side and it's in a little, it's not so exposed here, so it's not much rain and not much snow. But what was not so they didn't accept the idea of the openness to live together on these corridors, and I did big windows, so all of them should live together. Nowadays they close it by curtain, so I did probably as a young architect the same as Le Corbusier. Sometimes windows are windows. They should be there where people like to have them. If you do it by your way, they will change it. They will change. Nowadays they will change everything you are doing. They will destroy it if you don't do it the way the life is, like a convention. They will change it. So even in this house, I learned something. This is not so interesting. Yes, it is a pre-washed concrete. And I put different small piece of stone, yellow, green, and gray, the round one which in Switzerland you found in the Rhine, in the river Rhine. So you can change the meaning of concrete by a stone idea. I thought, produce a stone out of concrete. I'm not the only one. Mila Maranta did it, or Herzog de Mero did it too. So, of course, this is probably the Swiss element. What will happen when all the houses around it will be destroyed, and I have no references to this shape? So I hope you will construct a house which will take me as a reference. My way is no security for forever. It's just a feeling that you can fit to the surrounding if you want. If you want, it's possible. You can, any program, as big or as huge it is, you can always make it. All the programs are nowadays too big, all of them. And the place is always too small. But you can do it if you like. Otherwise you don't want, and you have a contrast. And most of my colleagues, I think, or architects in the world, they like the contrast. Program is so big, so let us see it and I just try to make it a little smaller here and to make split levels just to, it's a cascade in a terrain, so it looks a little bit smaller because all the houses around me, well, why do I stick to it? Right or wrong, it is your country. You have to accept it even if it's not so good, because it's still up to you to change it, to prove it, to keep it. I know it better than you because I lost once my country. And I had to come to this crazy country called Switzerland, 1968. You can't imagine how boring it was coming from Prague with long hair, feeling like a hippie, and coming to Switzerland, I was smoking, of course, smoking. And they were Protestant boys. Oh, it was separated schools, girls and boys. So I was in the boys' school, of course, boys. So they were all like that, like the Germans with, socks above. And a piece of bread by mother in the aluminium wrapping. And I had money for Mars sticker, Mars. So I bought Mars. And they were so angry that an emigree had more money they have. That was Switzerland. It took me 9 years. I went 3 times back to Prague until my father took the diplomatic passport away from me, so I couldn't go back. So I had to stay with them. Now I'm 55 years with them. You still are not Swiss. The way how you feel at the toilet, how you sleep, how you cook, your kitchen, your doors, the colors, which is probably your own way. You can't learn it. It's not so easy. It's not so easy. They still are a little bit different from me, and I'm still different from them. I am exactly when there is the right populist. They have there are sheeps. All are white, and one is black. I am the black sheep in Switzerland. So, because my mother didn't sing to me in Swiss dialect, and they never, merely all these Grimms, merely all these horrible German, merely there, or skiing. I hate Alps. I hate Alps. It's too dark, it's too high. Haldenstein. I went there 5 years. Whenever the construction commission was to end, and all of them, we had to drink together. This is Switzerland, and we are perdu, how, do. And then there is 9 o'clock, we go home, and I took my car and was driving in this narrow valley, horrible. It's in winter, there is horrible. You are skiing on the top, I know it is white and beautiful, but 9 o'clock. The chords are not bad because it was difficult to make it irregular, to open it a little bit more, to get more sun to the balconies. Yes, move. Swiss preciseness, this is incredible. They really do the concrete as a gold, as they do watches. It's very precisely done. And then this is the American way. No shoes and no clothes, and just you come in and you are you are at once in the life. You even smell what they are cooking. I've seen it in Chicago, where I lived, where I worked for Helmut Jahn in Chicago for 1 year. So I learned the American way of living hall. Augsburg, a gap of the Second World War, a phone call from Germany. We have construction permission, but they don't like our facade. Would you please produce a facade to our houses? Come tomorrow. So you have learned. Analyze the site, history, whatever the Rossi said. So 1 semester we always analyze things, and then 1 semester was project. So when we did a project, we were really clever guys. We were really with huge knowledge of culture. Here you comes, and tomorrow you have to start. Augsburg, well, it took me about, you walk around, you look for references, what you like. It's a, you can say it's not just an earnest exercise, but I think the final thing is not so bad. On the right side, the first examples, and we were referenced to the Dutch Amsterdam houses with very huge proportion of the windows, a very thin pilaster of concrete in between. And in the Judenberg, it's good, huh? For you arrive in Augsburg and there is a called street Judenberg. No, the irony, how to make the empiric non-order of the facade. So how you fix a disorder. It was, I think, the front facade was quite an easy compare. How long I work on the side facade because I didn't know how to make it. And you can't even make a photograph out of it. That's the final project. Yeah, the volumetry fits quite well, and I think it probably even in the facade. You work with the Buildings Protection Heritage Committee. A competition. A house of the 60s, influenced by a little bit by, we call it cut in, cut out, little bit Frank Reuterei. So, and it was a school, and it's a transformance for building. And the prima lettura, always I say, the prima lettura is very important for me. I said, how it looks in a plan, it should look in a silhouette. So the cascade will be the main elements. Houses of the 1960s, they are bad in the construction. They have no fundament. You can't put concrete or brick or whatever. So it was clear that we work with prefabricated wood system to be it very light. Where is it here? House for elder people. House for elder people, the Swiss, they don't want to go to the Altersheim. They want to stay in the apartment even until the death. Even if they just walk like that, it means 75. That's probably the age when they will leave their own apartment and come to a smaller one. 75. In this age, the toilet must be already like for handicapped people, the kitchen must be different, but all other things can be the same. I think these plus 75, and of course there are no men, 75 are only women. So this is a house for all elder women. And there was one man. They all loved him. And this is a house where the people die after 4 or 5 years. I did for leukemia, children and house. I have 2 houses. When you come after a couple of years with friends, the lady is no longer there or a bit changed. So that's the background of this nice house. How to make the apartment facade so that you are not one of 30. It is my apartment. How to make it, how to make a sign. So I think that's what we tried. The monotony would be, for me, one of the biggest enemies. How is it possible? We have to produce bigger programs. Of course, I understand it. It's from economical standpoint, I understand it. By the individuality, we bring them from their houses to the apartments. They have to leave where they were. So and I think there are 2 things which I make special. Outdoors, I always make outdoors not like Bauhaus balcony, not I make always 2.60 meters or 70. So you can have a bed, or you can, Florida schaukel that you can have over there. You have always a curtain, you have lights, you have water. It's a room, it should be a room like an ersatz, just instead of the garden they had. Otherwise they will never leave the small houses. So individuality, the cascade you see quite well. Then probably that was special. We have outer insulation, 28 centimeters. It's the cheapest way. It's of course sustainability. Yes, I know, but if you have to compare, the price is. All other constructions are double time more expensive. So, and on this 28 centimeters, the plaster can be only about 18 millimeters, not more. It can't be like in Prague on stone, 5 or 7 centimeters, so you can make all the plasticity. The plastic movement of 18 millimeters facade is it's a limited one. And we developed this, I would say, cut in, cut out in metal. So it's a metal plate which is on rails. So it's moving on rails. And Swiss work, as you see, how it starts from the top and they go down like that. And well, it worked. You almost don't see the spot where it changed. It's very finely done. So it looks a little bit like curtain, a kind of textile. On the left, the old school. On the right, how we change it. At the end, we could have destroyed the whole old house, but because we changed probably everything. But we couldn't. We were limited by the outer walls. Once we would cut them down, the distance would be much bigger, and then you have a very thin house, which was not economical. So we were told to speak about transition. So it's a transition. But really, as you know, you make the plans red and yellow in Switzerland to show what's new and what's old. So our plans were only red. Every apartment is probably. Oh no, I will show the. If we look at the here, the right side on top, I think what's special about the apartment is, first of all, I think that the loggia must be, how do you say, to make a hug. The living room and kitchen must make a hug around the loggia. So if you sit in a kitchen or if you are living, you see through the loggia. And a loggia must have 2 parts closed. It can't be a balcony. Balcony, it's too exposed. So it's an included balcony. Then the second, the openness of space. We always try, and it doesn't cost much. The sleeping rooms have probably, the door is not 80, but 1.20 meters. So if you open it, the facade continuity will be, so you see probably 3-4 windows. And that's all. We wanted Casa Ballatoio, they didn't like, so I did interior like the exterior. So you feel, again, a kind of identity. How can you make identity of the entry? 19th century houses, historicism, they did beautiful intarsian or glazing with colors. Well, this is probably too expensive, so to give them a window, it costs 2,000 francs. That's expensive, 2,000, because it's fireproof. So 30 women, 30 by, that's expensive. By it you can have probably better stone, or you will probably do better kitchen. Or I use it for the windows. these windows, the ladies decorated in their own way. So one was always Protestant against my idea. The window is always empty. There is nothing in it. The other one is a curtain. The other one is a religious. So there is Jesus and flying angels. Or when it's Christmas, they have whatever. And then the small sitting chair, probably the lamp, what was it? Dulux is offering a opal glass, and you can put aluminium plate on it and make an individual decoration of it, and it doesn't cost too much. So each of the door has some kind of individual element. So there are only 3 ladies in a corridor, 4. But again, I am not one of 100. Jean Nouvel made a social living in Paris when there are 80 people in a row, 80 people, like animals, and he was talking about metal effects. No, we have the problems of big size, bigness, and individuality. It must be their own entry. Because flowers are forbidden, wooden elements are forbidden because of fire protection. The bike must stay in the parterre. Again, it's not allowed to have something here, so it must be done by you, by your elements. Old people and openness. There was discussion for hours. Old people, they don't like to show themselves to the outside. They don't like the railways. The first apartments near to the railway station, they were gone in the first week when they start to advertise these. And they like it. This is what I call this shoot through. We call it Durchschuss. We say that really in German. So by meter 20, you can make an enfilade, a continuity of spaces, and it's quite a simple apartment. It's just one place and 2 sleeping rooms, and we connect them. Second, framing. It doesn't cost much, but I think that, yes, we are the old school, that curtain can be a special element. It's always like a portal, these elements. Coming into the apartment, this is what I said already, this panorama, continuity of light and space. And of course, in wooden, it's not the 4 millimeters, it's 8 millimeters of wood, so you can at least, 2-3 times repair it until it's properly finished, so it's quite a good quality. Urbanism is not by me, it's by Duplex, you probably know it, Hunziker Areal, a very interesting urban ideas of that the blocks are not done by cord, but house is already the block. So a very interesting urban principle. They took us because we were the 3rd prize, and 4 different offices work together. And this is a quite interesting experiment, because the house were of a huge depth. So it was in one house, and this is 27 meters, and it was a question what would be in the middle. No garage, so we have the cellars on the floor, we have all the bikes on the floor. This is what from the Google, it looks like it is all similar. It is not, the colors are different, but at least it's quite funny that here a kind of ensemble happened, which is quite, it's because again, modernity started with Stuttgart, Siedlung in Stuttgart, where it was the desire was that everybody would be individual. Every house is different. And I think that in Switzerland, a kind of context dialogue is more possible than in other parts. One of these houses is, I show it because of the big loggia. I said loggia is always a kind of space in the outside. It has to be covered by curtains or whatever. It must be really a place people can sleep when it's warm. Shyness is no longer a problem nowadays. People, well, they can upset. The second house, it was on the main street, main square, so it had to have a kind of palazzo expressivity. And the house, I would like to show the plans of it. It's a kind of Italian palazzo with cut-out corners for big loggia. And that's what probably you have seen in different magazines. Is because of fire protection, we had to have to escape. So you can flee to two different directions. And we developed a kind of beautiful inside of the hall. But yeah. These are the different outdoors I was spoken about. This is the entry. How can you make the entry nowadays? What's in parterre? Washing saloon. I think bikes, washing saloon. That's all. Because business is probably no longer, can't be in every building. So, and a kind of communication zone where people can meet and talk. So we had in mind the Italian houses, the film by Mastroianni and Sofia Loren, when they are standing on all these balconies and talk together. This is, and the entry of every apartment, again, that what we have seen already, to make it individual by glass or by oak wood. It costs, again, so that's where, if you are on the side of calculation, it's very important, because once you use it for the entry, you have to spare it on floors in the after or bathroom. You can't buy everything. You can't have everything. So you have to decide where you make the music. And I think that the border between public and private is very important. That's my face. I come out and I come in. It's really, well, from the proxemic laws of there's different books about it. So it's very important, because the identity starts exactly at the border. And so I can't repeat just anonymous door. And in these three houses, I did the big space communicating, the windows we have already seen, the different precise entries. And let us look at the normal apartment. First of all, it's a kind of, I said it already, I think that the living area is round the loggia. That's probably a good idea. My wife says, no, I don't like this kitchen being in living area, but that's my wife. But it's then separation of sleeping and public. I mean, this is an old rule. I think it still works. And if you entry to have your bike there or buggies, whatever, and yes, then the proportion of the sleeping rooms, that at least 2 rooms should be for the parents, at least. Doesn't have, well, in the music Wohnhaus, I did all the rooms equal. It doesn't have to be, because probably some of them are more narrow. Sustainability means that we can't have bathroom, or we can't have them on the surface. We have them in the like a zwiebel, like in the middle. Of course, we would prefer to have a natural airing, but it's probably the price for sustainability that we have a compact volumetry. The look in the outside, the tiles. I have, I don't know, 12 now, very young architects. And they always thought about the tiles, even months ago, and they brought the Spanish one or the beautiful. And I said, just wait until the developer will come and he will give you 3 choices, and you can choose from exactly that's what he did. And do you know how he kicked out our Spanish tiles? Because in the commission, the developer came, took out his, I don't have the keys, and did, Herr Professor, just look at it, does it work? And the Spanish tiles were gone. But even if you have the standards, even if you are very low and you have all standards, you can do patterns. You can choose the color. I think that it's not correct. Even if you work with developers, you can produce. This is in cooperation with developers. So I think sometimes it can work. And it looks like the old Swiss entries of these Schachmuster. It's well, we have seen it. I think that's already very common and understandable. There are a maisonette, a Jewish guy making a Christian church. You come to a restoration of St. Joseph, and you come, it's 2017. After 50 years, they didn't much done. Only in the time of hippie, they changed the chorus. Some hippie artists came and thought, Maria and Jesus should be like going to San Francisco. So he put Maria here. Maria is sitting here like you. And the child is just long hair, so, and it's flowing, so you are not afraid, not the staircases, because flowing is very sympathetic, so you are not anxious because of God, and even you make a fontaine, so it is baptism fontaine, but it should look like Italian fontaine you can buy near to the highways. They sell it like that. So it's human. He spoke about humanity of his, and I thought this is a functionalist church from 1930, and he didn't understand anything. It's not the darkness and the dirt, of course. This is, and it's not these all these. Well, Šik, stop. So these were my clients. I put the whiteness back. This is the whiteness in the 1930s. They have seen in whiteness the whiteness of color, the pureness. This was the idea of the first architect, Hegge, Werner Hegge. His idea was to have a white space and color in the windows. And I just restored it. It's nothing special. For that, it was necessary to... No, I go in the wrong direction. I'm sorry. I can't go back. I wanted to go back, sorry. Yes, it's okay. The benches. The first of them, I had to get rid of these benches because dark benches, they don't reflect the color. I said to them, yes, I understand. In these benches, there is the sweat of all the generation from 1930s. Yes, I do understand. You know, all when you are afraid of God, so you just hold yourself. And that's how the Jew is managing the Catholics, yes. I said, no, it must be light. So all the violet and the yellow colors will be seen. And I proposed new benches in a gray color. Secondly, I said the chorus must change. It must be the old one. A church, a basilica, as Hegge was thinking it, has a chorus. And nothing here, nobody's playing a game. It's just that the old one chorus, and in the middle is the cross. We will do it back as it was once. So we did it. So this is always a restoration. The benches are probably new. The floor we changed. We put even lighter floor, a new stone. And then the light. Candles. The analogy is quite simple. Candles, of course, you can see here it's too simple, but the estrangement is probably how it's big and how we did it in 5 sectors. So you can have the lights in different, dark or yellow. Looking back, new organ, the Beckness we produced. It was the most difficult thing because I didn't understand anything about the instrument. It took me weeks. And the producer of the organ always draw in my drawings. He said, no, you do it. It was quite... But at the end, we have produced together something interesting. And now the chorus, which is the most interesting part. If it's white, it won't work. So we have looked in the cellar of the old farmhouse. We have found, if you look down, they always cover there something interesting. We have found 2 golden figures. They didn't like in the 80s when they renovated, they didn't like the figurative arts. So we put them again, Franciscus with a child and Maria. And we just put new gold on it and he's back. And then we had an idea in a competition, a typical architect's idea. What if on the wall of the chorus there would be what Joseph said? All things in the Bible, what Joseph said. Well, okay, that's a good idea. I don't know, I think Daniela Frey in my office produced it, and I went home, opened the Bible. Joseph didn't say anything. He was the stepfather of Jesus. There are only sentences. He took Jesus by hand and they walked, or Joseph went home. I have 2 kids at home. I am stepfather too, I know it quite well. They don't need us too much. You pay, you are a good man, but... So there's nothing he said. But there are churches, St. Joseph, there are, because in Matthäus Passion there is a very small passage about Joseph, about 25 sentences put together. That's what the people in St. Joseph read every year on the day of Joseph. And then, okay, I have the text, I know what it will be. And then, again, a correct man of nowadays will say, and now we will repeat it in all languages of the world. Probably not the text, but the name of Jesus, of Joseph. It's a wonderful idea. We went to the priest and asked him if it's a good idea. He listened to us and he said, Professore, how many languages do we have in the world? I said, I don't know, 600. Yes. And how many of them have their own writings? I didn't know it. He knew it. So about 110. Okay. And what's the difference of Joseph in French? It's Joseph. In Czech, Joseph. Only probably in Papua, New Guinea it will be called, but they don't have Joseph. So this idea was dead. It was a dead-born idea. So what you do again? You take this Joseph text, and we have found the earliest Catholic written text, which was found in a stone in a catacomb in Rome. And that's what we did. And the biggest problem was how many times the text, which is only on A4, you have the text is only big like that, how many times Joseph will repeat himself going round. the idea was complicated because we said, yes, we have in this Catholic community, we have Serbs, Croat, Italian, Spanish, Swiss, German. So it will be in all these languages, which didn't work for the community. They said, no, Herr Šik, only German and Latin. No Serb and no Croat. And you have to accept it. I had to accept, I wanted always to make multiversal, to show the religions in the bigness, now at the end it's only German and Latin, and it's repeating about 70 times, it's repeating but look at it to understand me better. 9,000 of them, you had to measure all, at the end we had it so many centimeters, you see how they worked. About 12 people, 3 months, graffito, which you have to make it has to be fresh. If it's dry, you can't cut it out, it won't work. So they had to work in these partitions to make these elements. This is done by Moser Siedler, which are very good light planners in Zurich. This is how it works. So the candles is mixed a little bit by lampions. It allows us to have different positions of light. Corpus Christi, even at the end I had the chance to make Corpus Christi, so I became a little bit like a sculpture, or the Baptist Fontaine. This is the gray-brown color, the light color, and the last analogy, which is probably at the end of what we can do, is if you have an old Bible and people have read it in the rose, what was this? In the name of the rose, and somebody's killed by it. So that was the memory of. They don't like it until now. They think, Herr Šik, this is a little bit vulgar what you did here, but Alpha Omega, it's for tabernacle, Alpha Omega. Heberling is the craftsman. This is his work, a wonderful man. Without them, the stone man and all these, I wouldn't do it. Of course, it was but a good story. I thought them do it as it would look like. It was always there. Make a hole. It will be full of holes, but because I never work with stone, I left, and in the afternoon I came, and he was so he did a hole, a hole, a hole, and it became a pattern. It were dots. It was not what I wanted. I said, no, you will. People always start to make a ornament by working, because they work and what I expect from him, so I put 2 men on it. So they had to change themselves, so I get the mixture, otherwise I would, I show it a little bit here, so it doesn't look like done, or it's better by rain, or what would be the movement to destroy the stone. Apostle, 12 apostle, bigger one, smaller one, behind, in foreground. The analogy I couldn't say in the commission because it was Jewish one. These are the papyrus found in the desert, the first papyrus of a Jewish sect, and but it works quite nice. It's a metal which a little bit like opening. You have these guard towns. I will come now to end because it's a little bit too long. There's a settlement of the 1940s. Houses you have here too, and they ask you to make a complement, to make a new house. I think that the position of the house is a traditional one. It's nothing special. We use we put it in this way, you will expect it. What's special about it is probably that we work out the poverty of all windows are equal. And then there are only a couple of our eyes, and behind the eyes there is ellipsoid staircase. So these are the only specialty of this house is, and the precise element of these houses of the 1940s, because each period has its own dream, a roof which is going a little bit up, and it's only about 12, it's starting by 5 and going to 15, not more. That must be repeated because otherwise the shape wouldn't be the same. And then what's your intention? What can you can make, I don't know, 4 millimeters more. It costs already because these are 2 steps of works and 2 colors, and so it costs. So again, you have the tradition, and to change it, you have to find the places you can do it. It looks a little bit different from the. Yeah, I go in the right. That's the court. Once we designed this, we asked the house in opposite if they don't want to have such beautiful balcony as we do. Suddenly you have the whole court. 2.90 meters. 2.90 meters. It's really a huge one. Well, that's not so special. I will show just, that's the balcony. It's quite a huge one. And again, to understand the eyes, so this is how it works inside. With a Swiss preciseness, again, these staircases, as they were done in the 90s, Figini, Pollini, and so on. Well, I will stop here because the time is gone. I will just remember the 3 elements which are more important than all the things I have built. To make your profession more interesting, I did it for myself. And my way was to make research, to learn, to teach, to build your own family, that I'm not alone. Because I feel very alone with all these tendencies nowadays with the global architecture. So not to have my own world, I built this Tradere, which is probably for you a little bit naive, but for me was a big help. And the second and the third element is whatever you build, it should be simple probably in the conception, and the beautiful things should be on a way to touch it, the whiteness of white or the redness of red or a wooden floor, and that's what I did. And well, thank you. Oh, I will become present.
Yeah, now it's present time. Thank you for a fantastic lecture. It was really an experience. And on behalf of the association, I would like to give you these 2 books. This is a book on Norwegian wood with a foreword by Nobel Schultz on the wood tradition in Norway. And then this is a gift on, maybe you would like it, on Czechoslovakian housing projects that I found yesterday. So this is a bit an extra thing, but it's quite a good book. So I think with these 2, you could
go home.
You might enjoy them. Okay, so we have questions.
I'm sure you prepared your own question, do you?
Well, I do have questions, but I don't know if it's fitting to start asking lots of questions now. I'm very curious about if you could elaborate a little bit on estrangements, because I see in estrangement a way to make a strong experience aesthetically from the everyday. No, and you mentioned estrangement several times.
Bertolt Brecht did it. He spoke about Entfremdung. He was always asking if we have the normality as it is, how it can change to something new. That's what he called the estrangement. And, well, in those days it was I would say, for example, by cutting it, cubistic art would be by collage or whatever. They worked very much in the 1930s on this estrangement. I just used the word.
But it seems also with this working with housing in a realistic way where you don't have the unlimited budget and you work with the standards, this seems to be a productive way to deal with that and still create something, no? Making the normal or everyday a bit strange.
Yes. That where comes politics into the discussion. When they take us a lot of our money or our honorary, and we have only this 32%, it means until the competition, and then it's gone, and then we have only a control. I don't have this touch to reality. It's only the image I'm producing, a good model or whatever. I think that the reality gives me the chance to hold the wholeness. And there I built the knowledge. Until then, I have only images. My perspective were fantastic, well done, or they were impressive, but they are not the reality. The longer I built, the more I know that they were too expressive, because I thought only in images. And the houses, the longer I work, the houses are more quiet, because I can touch it. And I know how important it is that you can touch the house or smell the house. I mean, your wooden houses, you have to smell it. And if they take us, because now they produce the wood, which is plastic one. It looks like wood, but it's full of plastics. If they take us the smell, well, then it sticks to images. It's like, Zaha will excuse, but all the houses of her are, if you come 1 meter near to the house, there is no new dimension you discover. You have to be the 50 meters in distance, and then you have Zaha Hadid. But if you come near, or the biggest disappointment for me was the work of Aldo Rossi himself, because he was not interested in construction. So his houses were done by some other architects in Berlin, for example. And they were done in a bad shape. They are in a bad shape. They are the plastic gap in between elements. So I think that the older I was, the more I knew about reality, the less expressive my images became. That's probably what I'm saying. I think that a house can be designed in a perspective like the house of Hans Dölgast, which even on photography is not so interesting. You have to be there and to see what it is done. Or an example, the church by Leveretz. When it's on photography, it's just, I thought it's a kind of expressive shape, but then you come into the interior of his last church of Leveretz, and it's incredible strength, or it's this detailing and this concrete. So I think that reality of material, of stone, of wood, of concrete, is a dimension I didn't have at the beginning, and it became more deep for me the longer I worked. And I think that the biggest danger for us is the image. I'm saying I am the one who brought perspective back to Europe, the big one. I am the one who developed the technique of Faber-Castell pencils to make it, long before all these Photoshop were developed. So we were able to make in 3 days a perspective, which was, but at the same time nowadays I think that it's good. Now I don't draw any longer, but I built, and it's different. It's different. You have to, at the morning, you have to take better shoes than you all have. You have those good shoes, and to be at the morning and 7 o'clock when they start, and then it's looked differently to what you have in computer. You have to move, you have, even if it's a kitchen, it doesn't matter, but the reality is that's what we are special. We are not sculpture, we are not painters, we are not movie makers, and we don't fly to Mars. That's because I saw some works in the outside. We are architects. We are. You have to calculate. You have to be a developer on the side. You have to think. We are about 4 or 5 professions. What's more rich than what we are? That's our reality. And I didn't know it until, what was the first building? 37. I started to build. So the earlier you start to build, the better. The first exercise in the 1920s at the ETH, the exercise was construct a sanitary house for WC, a WC house. But the whole, they even had to build it with all elements. It isn't such a bad example for beginners at a school, because they come from gymnasium and they are open to the whole world, and they will be different, and they will... No. At the age of 12, they understood architecture better than at the age of 21, because it was by here, they could open the door, they knew how to use the steps, and all these knowledges will be destroyed by the abstract high school. And I'm not criticizing your school or my school, whatever. So the reality is probably what I was talking about, and the knowledge I didn't have at the beginning. So the first images I produced were without a knowledge of architecture. If you understand me what I'm saying.
I can relate a bit as someone who has worked with digital images and working heavily on simulating reality, trying to simulate it as it is, not to contrast it, but to recreate it.
Yes.
And it leaves you hungry for real materiality when you have tried to simulate it, let's say.
Yes.
And you want what you cannot, the taste, the smell, the touch, you want these things that you cannot get from the image, but you are trying to simulate.
That's why I want to wake in my students the will to go away from the school. But again, I need them, because otherwise I couldn't teach them. But in the old days, Otto Rudolf Salbis, professor, was in the first floor. He had his own office, and here was his atelier. And it was here the same in Sweden too. So the students could change, and they saw what he was producing, and they went with him to the construction site. That was a good model. That was a good model. Then there came the democratization and then social development and it was forbidden that the professor is misusing the school. But atelier, the old atelier is the middle-age atelier. You are drawing in the same manner. You are cutting the wood. You are sleeping on the floor with. It's not the discussion in a good distance. So the professor is not touching. That's what a professor should. The reality should eat you. Not everybody liked it. Not every student. Some of them, after one semester, said, "Never again, Šik, never again." Well, that's good too, because they discover at least what they don't like.
Yeah, that's a lot to know. Okay. Questions?
So,
Thank you.
we don't have to have questions. Thank you.